and welcome to Carolina Classrooms. I'm Laura Ibarra. 2023 marks the 50th anniversary of hip-hop, a celebration of music, dance, art, and culture.
Hip-hop isn't just a music, it's a culture. When we talk about a culture, it's not just the music you listen to. Hip-hop is based on 4 principles. You have the emceeing, which is the poetry and the rapping. You have DJing, which is, playing 2 records together or rocking a party, the music aspect. You have b-boying, which is the dance element that comes out of that. Then you have graffiti, you have art culture that comes out of that. I think that as somebody like me that feels like I love art, I love history, I love culture, that was something that every element of hip-hop just grabbed me at a young age. It was young, it was vibrant, it was BIPOC people that looked like me that told me this, and this is the most important thing to me about hip-hop. It said that my voice mattered. When you're able to step on a stage and perform, when you're able to be sensitive enough to express something that you've created, because when we create in a vacuum. We're writing alone in a house somewhere, and to be able to put it out there for people to appreciate it, those are the things that you take with you. That confidence of being on stage and the confidence that I've learned being involved in hip hop culture allows me to walk in any room and say, I belong here. And I think those things where we're talking about being in a classroom, using the tools for hip-hop culture that give kids an outlet and ability to not just create, but to be creating in a nurturing environment. Those are the things that's really important that creates very, very healthy and confident individuals that can move forward in the world.
Ashley Evans teaches dance at Irmo Middle School. She encourages her students to express their creativity through movement.
Go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Good. Go ahead and drop those arms for me when you begin your run.
What we normally do is learn a little bit of the history, the important people that paved the way, learn the vocabulary of the movement, because it's very hard, in my opinion, to really appreciate where you are today without recognizing those who paved the way for you. And I think a lot of the movements I see on TikTok and all of these other trends that come up, students don't realize it came from somewhere else, or it's just a reinterpretation or reimagination of a movement that has already existed.
Let's stick in the 90s group that we've kind of learned over the past couple of weeks. So, slide.
From my experience, hip hop is kind of like more loose and like you can really do what you want, but like ballet and jazz, modern, it's like more strict.
If we have time at the end of class, we do smaller groups, we turn off the lights, and they get the real on-stage feel, and we support each other, clap for each other, and it gives them a good practice with a small audience. And then they get the chance to create choreography. So one of the groups you saw created that movement. Each of the smaller groups created that movement. That wasn't Miss Evans, that was them. They had a week, they had a list of requirements, and they really just went above and beyond with that project. And they were proud to show their work, which is exciting.
You just kind of go with the song. Like, it depends what song you dance to. Like, if you dance to a fast song, then you can dance fast. If you dance to a slow song, dance like more feeling, more expression. Nobody judge you in here. It's just all family and friends. Like, if you mess up, they gonna help you. Like, it's no judgment in this class.
Here, my biggest push is to get them to feel comfortable with making mistakes. I want them to learn that mistakes are a part of learning. It is very difficult to grow without that roller coaster ride of your ups and your downs. And you also get this appreciation of seeing, wow, this is where I started and this is how far I've grown in this amount of time. And so trying to figure out how to build relationships and get students to trust themselves and be confident in what they are doing and the choices they're making, and to be okay with making mistakes and just learning and growing from them, that is really my foundation here. Is because once I get students to get in that zone, that I am great with who I am and where I am, and I will get where I want to be if I just take those baby steps and set goals and get where I want to be. I'll get there eventually. It doesn't have to be today or tomorrow. I will get there. If I can get them to have that growth mindset, I can teach them anything. But some of the most talented kids are so shy and afraid of being judged, especially in this world of social media. They're afraid to make a mistake because somebody's gonna record it and put it up somewhere. If I can't get that wall knocked down first, I can't really get through to them as a teacher. So that's really how I get them to do all of that. It's just, this is a family environment. We're gonna work on building a family first, and then we can really fly.
Just be yourself, and if you need help, ask Miss Evans or like ask one of the students or something like that. Just be yourself. Don't worry about like what anyone else has to say. Just like Miss Evans said, dance like no one's watching.
Sometimes considered controversial based on perceptions around language use, hip-hop is also recognized as contemporary poetry. In fact, in 2018, rapper Kendrick Lamar was awarded a Pulitzer Prize, creating poetry that captures the complexity of modern African American life. The lyrics that bring these stories to life amplify youth and underrepresented voices and often highlight rhetorical genius.
We were just telling our story, and we somehow thought our story would not get heard if we didn't say it. And then we found ways to be very extreme in the way we said it. And that came with a lot of creativity. So it was definitely more about taking the chance to share some sides of myself via the written word, and then I think the creativity kicked in at some point, and I was trying to figure out how many different ways I could say it, or how could I affect people, and that's when I began to realize it was art. It was for me, but other people were able to connect with it because they had similar stories.
Finding people that look like you is really important. And so when I was growing up, I would grow up on a Shakespeare, but I would put James Baldwin in a category of the things that James Baldwin has written is probably more powerful to me. And you've had professors nationwide being able to show those parallels. You know, there were classes called From Shakespeare to Tupac. And I think that those are the important things of being able to not just show kids, hey, here's a genre of music that you're listening to, but the historical reference, right? So when you're able to show children, here's a parallel, here's how you tie those things together. You know, if you're looking at anybody from a Rothko, I would also pull out a Basquiat, you know, and you can show that here's how those connections come together from art. Representation matters not just for the obvious reasons of seeing someone that looks like me doing something that I might want to do or something that I didn't think I was able to do. Representation matters because it tells you that you are accounted for. It tells you that you're important enough for me to put on a screen, for me to put in a book, for me to tell your story. A lot of kids and adults in that matter, because I don't think it leaves you when you grow up. Isolation is a very terrible place to be. And a lot of things that, you know, developmental things that children need, self-esteem, being able to communicate with others, being able to blossom, you can't do that when you're worried about, am I being seen or heard, or feeling like your voice doesn't matter.
Even though it may not tickle your fancy with the audio or how it sounds, I think in the lyrics or tucked the messages that if they're resonating with youth, it's a good place to start in terms of figuring out what they may be feeling inside that they can't articulate. The only rule of hip hop is you have to be who you say you are. Your lyrics in hip hop, from the start, it was kind of like, you know, I'm from Blase Blah Street. I grew up with these guys. I get a soda pop over there, you know, like, and that grew into, you know, I'm getting $10,000 a show. I got the biggest gold chain. To, you know, more introspective, the Tupacs and the Scarface. Hey man, I love my mom. She was there when nobody was there for me. Or this is a tough time seeing my best friend go through a jail sentence. So I think to be a part at the time I joined hip hop or became fully immersed, authenticity was all you really had, you know? So I think in all of my other endeavors as I've gotten older, it's about the only way I can show up, you know, and I have hip hop to thank for that because hip hop would not allow me to show up any other way, you know. I had to come as myself, the good and the bad. I'm hoping all teachers of any format can be authentic. I think it's the only way people really really can welcome what you have to say. You know, if there's any, especially with kids nowadays, they are tuned in, man. If there's anything that you're hiding, and the fact that they can find it in a heartbeat anyway, it's like, they appreciate, you know, hey.
Dr. Toby Jenkins, Professor of Higher Education and Associate Provost for Faculty Development for the University of South Carolina, is the author of The Hip Hop Mindset, a series of interviews with educators embracing hip hop culture.
Hi, I'm Toby Jenkins, Professor of Higher Education at the University of South Carolina. One of the ways that scholars and educators across the globe are celebrating the 50th anniversary of the birth of hip hop is through documenting and reflecting on the culture's influence on American life. I'm also the director of the Museum of Education, where I've curated an exhibit looking at the influence of hip hop on the field of education over the past 50 years. That exhibit will be on display and open to the public through December. I've also written a book that was recently published called The Hip Hop Mindset, Success Strategies for Educators and Other Professionals. In the book, I'm looking at hip hop beyond the art form, beyond the music, beyond the dance, even beyond the graffiti art. I'm looking at how the culture influences the way that we think, our belief systems, the way that we approach life, and more importantly, how we approach work. I spent time having conversations with educators across the country and on their use of hip hop in their professional practice. And these are educators who have had incredible success in their careers, but they have also specifically point to hip hop as one of the reasons for that success. I am so excited today to have two of those educators that are highlighted in the book with us. We have Dr. Tony Keith Jr., who is, yes. Tony is the CEO and Executive Director of Emcee Academy in Washington, D.C. We also have Dr. Leigh Endsley, who is Associate Professor of Africana Studies at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in New York. And finally, we have with us Vivian Anderson. Vivian is an internationally recognized community-based educator who is based out right here in Columbia. She is the CEO and Executive Director of Every Black Girl. Yes. Thank you. It's the 50th anniversary of the birth of hip hop culture. And we've been hearing so much about how hip hop is transformative in the classroom, right? It's a tool that is absolutely transformative. And each of us, and each of you in particular, have been using hip hop in different ways, right? So in your work in middle schools and in high schools, community-based programs and everything. So let's start our conversation by talking a little bit about how has hip hop transformed your classrooms or the educational spaces that you lead. Vivian, let's start with you.
Okay, so me in education was not traditional, like professor and doctor, right? I volunteered at an African-centered charter school in Detroit, and because of how I was interacting with one of the girls that nobody could reach, all of a sudden I was teaching the next year. Don't ask me how. Okay. They brought me in, and I'm like, okay, so nobody's taught me how to teach. Right. So how do I teach somebody how to read, or how do I teach somebody how to do things? And hip hop was my thing, and that was the only way. So I was using songs, having them take lyrics from songs they know in hip hop to like start teaching them how to read. I remember math. I'm not good at math, but we took Y'all Gonna Make Me Lose My Mind, DMX, and we turned, you gonna make me do some math up in here, and all those, and that's how I got the elementary, and you know, that's mid-90s, right? And then when I was in New York, I was working for the YMCA, and that was at the time when they were creating suspension sites in alternative schools when kids were suspended, but we had to have them somewhere. And you know, as high school students, and they're being told to write essays and they don't know how. And I started there was a book out, Hip Hop's to the Classics by Michael Cirilli, and I was using that to take hip hop, having kids write lyrics, like whatever's coming to mind, write your lyric, write it out, and taking that lyric, forming a sentence, taking those sentences, wrapping it together. This is how we're gonna do your college essay. This is how we're gonna do your homework. And so that's how it started transforming how, you know, the educational way to, for me, like, I don't know the technical way to teach you, but I know what you like and I know what I like, and we're gonna make this further. And so, and it was another way to hear, for me as an educator, to know other things that was going on with them because of how they were using those words.
Wow,
so that's
absolutely. What about you, Dr. Endsley?
So for me, you know, I think hip hop transforms my classroom because hip hop transformed my life, right? So I'm a poet first and foremost, always, right? Spoken word artist. Every space I enter first as a poet. And when I think about what the most excellent teachers I know, whether it's a college classroom or one of my community workshops, anywhere around the world, when we speak different languages, you know, sometimes I'm working with global girls in communities where we don't even speak the same language. But the thing that hip hop taught me most, that I think has made me an excellent performer as well as an educator, is to listen. The best teachers are the best students. And so when I enter a classroom, I don't enter as an expert, I enter as we are co-collaborating. So it's like how you always say with the cipher, right? Like hip hop has taught me not only, like, I better, when I come to the stage, I better come correct. I better come 100%. But also as an audience member, what is my duty, my responsibility? What role do I play as an audience member? Because both count equally, right? It's not just when I'm in the spotlight, but when I'm in the audience or supporting another artist or a student that's learning or a global girl in a community. What do? I have to listen, and I have to listen. I have to listen with my whole body, right? I have to respond with my whole body. So we are equal contributors, and I think because hip hop taught me that, which taught me how to be a great poet or pay attention to my words, it taught me how to listen, you know, and to really honor both of those positions as audience member, so as student and as teacher, right? So it demands that I investigate power and also don't be afraid of it, you know, use it in my body, and then demonstrate that for my students, but also demonstrate how can I be a good audience member and friend, and poet and artist, you know, and all of these different things. And so I think that's what hip hop has transformed me in that way. Right. And so it transforms everything that I do, because I have to approach it as we're co-collaborating on anything that we do.
Right. Yeah. So teaching people teaching even professionals how to be instructors, because really you're instructing in how to be a learner. You know, and so if you don't demonstrate as an educator in the classroom what it looks like and what it means to, and how beautiful and exciting it is to be a learner, you're always positioned yourself as a knowledge producer and not someone that's also receiving that knowledge.
I think as professionals, we're expected to show up perfect, and like we're totally the experts, and we're supposed to be experimenting, right? That's hip hop all over again too. My classroom is an experiment. I mean, I have a plan. Don't get me wrong, but you know, we're learning together, and I'm not afraid to try something different. And it might not. I mean, you know, it might not work, but
that's okay. That's okay, because it's about being free, free. Tony, Dr. Keith.
I just get so inspired whenever Dr. Endsley talks. I too enter all spaces as a poet first, right? And so, but for me, it's interesting listening to my colleagues on the stage. What I realize is my sort of approach to integrating hip hop culture into my work as an educator, in addition to like classroom teaching, because I'm not a classroom teacher. I've always been, I mean, I was a college professor at some point, but I'm more like community-based educator, nonprofit programs, after-school programs, very community-based after-school sorts of things. And so for me, in addition to hip hop culture being about teaching and learning and literacy, for me, it's also about research and leadership, right? And I think that these are areas where hip hop, after 50 years within education, has really entered this particular space. I'm happy to say this. I'm 42 years old. Hip hop is 50. I don't know a world. Thank you. I don't know a world without hip hop in it. Most of us don't know a world without hip hop in it. And all I kept thinking about, especially when I was like in a doctoral program, I was studying this stuff. I was like, every single leadership theory I'm reading about people in education, none of them mention anything about poets or spoken word artists or hip hop was not talked about as a leadership practice in education. And so for me, the way that I look at this is like philosophically, hip hop is that thing in education for like a teacher to move a classroom. right? Or for like a leader to like move a community. But that idea of being an MC, right? A mover of the crowd, right? Without a microphone, right? You have a microphone in your classroom, right? But I look at it like leadership is sort of like, when there's a community of folks who I care about, we've got to share this. How can I move this crowd? But for me, I ain't a DJ, I'm not a break dancer, I'm not a graffiti, I'm a poet, spoken word artist all day, right? So for me, I look at it, how can I move this crowd in education with leadership using my rhythmic spoken words, right? And so for me, I pull up to schools, right? Colleges, universities, museums, will take over for a day with my team of people at the academy, and we do a lot of like deep student engagement related work, but it's all rooted in this philosophy that hip hop is a form of leadership, right? Yeah.
Right. And that's really what the core principle that I was exploring in this book, right, is about hip hop as a leadership practice, and a leadership practice that's not just for students, but for everyone. That educators, that administrative leaders, community-based leaders, business professionals, healthcare, whatever realm that you work in. That there's some ethics, some values, some principles that we can all learn from hip hop, right? Because hip hop influences more than just classrooms and lesson plans. It influences people. Right. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about how it.
Look, I'm about
to. So, and we'll continue, Tony, with you. Let's talk about how has hip hop culture influenced the way you move in the world.
Okay. So 80s baby. Right, and I remember growing up listening. First of all, I'll start with, I remember just growing up listening to hip hop music in my house, right? We talk about hip hop and culture. I just remember very much listening to hip hop music. My mother has a record player. I grew up listening to LL Cool J and Queen Latifah, so I grew up at least on hip hop music. However, as an adult, I understand, I was growing up with hip hop culture's music because I was, the cultures, I'm thinking like, I was also like wearing baggy jeans, right? And I wanted my Timberland boots and my fitted hat, but there was sort of the way that folks within hip hop culture were dressing, right? It felt like there was an identity that got attached to that, right? And so for me, like hip hop, like the way that it became a part of my identity. And as I said before, I don't know a world without hip hop in it, right? And so anyway, so there's that. So I think there's something about showing up as your most authentic self in those spaces is what hip hop taught me how to do, right? When I am able to get up on the stage and spit all my poems and the audience react, and that builds confidence, that confidence shows up in my teaching. That confidence shows up in my leadership. That confidence shows up when I'm in a board meeting with a president of a university in my jeans and my sneakers. Right? I think I even say in your book, like, are we gonna talk about the slacks that I'm wearing, or are we gonna talk about the policies we need to address? Right? Like,
what conversation do you want to have?
What conversation you want to have? Right? And the hip hop, I'm gonna check you. You know, Sorry.
For me, you know, I'm thinking about this. I'm thinking about how I grew up, and I grew up in the church. We didn't listen to secular music in the house. We weren't allowed to, right? And for me, when I think about what hip hop taught me, because you can't. It's more than just the music, right? But I think about the most creative, or you know, I love Missy Elliott. I'm gonna shout Missy Elliott out. But the creativity that was there was something that was nurtured in my household. And I think when I learned about the 4 elements of hip hop, and then I learned about the knowledge of self, the 5th element of hip hop, which is that spiritual component. I recognize it's something I've been doing all along.
That's the thing.
Right, and it was the spoken word, it was the poetry, it was the performance that I identified with, right? I couldn't afford the brand names, right? But it was something about the energy, right? And the boldness, and the fearlessness that resonated with me so deeply in these artists that I would see. And so for me, realizing once I finally put language around, like, oh, this is the 5th element of hip hop, knowledge of self. How I know myself helps me move in the world. In every space I enter, then I can enter boldly, unashamed, unapologetic, ready to serve and help somebody, right? And that's the creativity, that's the fun and the funkiness. I could bring all of that everywhere I went, because it was coming whether I acknowledged it or not, you know? So to know yourself is to know the universe and to know God. And when I realized that was the space I had been occupying and just didn't have the language for until I learned about the 5th element of hip hop. It shifted everything for me.
Because Dr. E, one of the things that you've said is that that hip hop showed you that it was okay to be a lot. Right? And I think that's such an important statement, because we often feel that way about some students.
Right.
You know, we could just like, they're alive. They're alive. Like, we're always trying to,
You know who in the building today.
Right, right. To not get students to be, but understanding that it is okay to be a lot. That if that's your personality, it's okay. And if the teacher, the instructor, the educator, the facilitator recognizes that it's okay for them to be a lot, then it's okay for the students in your room to also be a lot.
Yes, it's okay, but it's the freedom.
The freedom.
The freedom of modeling that, right? And then seeing a reflection, because I saw a reflection of myself in those artists in a way that I was told or raised or socialized not to, I couldn't do that. I couldn't take up that space. I better be quiet. There's danger in speaking up. And so to be able to be bold, because I saw it modeled this way, and to enjoy it. We're allowed to have fun. I'm having fun with y'all today.
To just be yourself. To just be yourself. And then guess what? When you relax enough to just be yourself, it's amazing how open you are to learning.
Exactly.
Right. Any other?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't got them deep.
That's okay. That sounds like, because we could tag team. I'm really hoping, because I'm like, I want to go to a place.
Dissertations, right? Because I knew a life before hip hop, right? I came in with hip hop. I'm over 50. So,
I don't believe it.
Like I have memory.
Show me the receipts.
But how did it help me move into the world, right? That question is sitting with me because at a time, I grew up in Detroit, right? And so at a time where, especially as you're in school, you're told to be in one place or do, like, if you this, you have to be over here. If you this, you have to be over here. Hip hop was the only place where it's like, get in where you fit in, for real, and not like as an aftermath. It was like, well, I kind of write. Okay, so you write. Well, I like to be on the mic, and so we all. So it felt like there was no competition, and we weren't forced. Like, okay, they the breakers, and we all played our position and created community. That was another thing. That was the place where I found some community, and that's a place where it helped me navigate through the world because it became like one of your pieces starts. It's like it was the piece where all that was happening. That I was able to get out in a safe way, but like you heard me. Now how you respond to me and come offer me support is another story, but I get to say it. I get to say it. And so since then I've been navigating that way, even when you talk about the kids that's too much. Like hip hop, you had to be everything. It's like, they be like, girl, get out, you know? And so I'm like, okay. I started looking at it like, oh, I'm not too much. You just don't know have enough capacity to hold me. So you got to do some stuff and work, and it helps me navigate in every space as a, a leader of an organization, working with staff, working with kids. Like, we get to create this space and then bring others along and teach them how to be their fullest self. Because it's not that I'm too much, I'm being my full self. And you still hiding some stuff. So you're shrinking and then you want me to shrink with you, but I can't do it. And that's some of the stuff that
And that idea of being your most authentic self can be so, I think for a lot of folks, very challenging when you really don't know who you are. Right? When there's that missing connection of knowledge of self. And I get it's tricky to, you can't tell people what their history is, right? But like, the idea that you might be missing parts of your history, whatever, but something about knowing that. And I think that when people like us show up in these educational spaces that are usually very confined, where hip hop is regarded as some mess, only monstrous music, misogynist, hot mess. But when we show up just embodying the culture, I've seen firsthand how that inspires teachers, principals, students. I had a principal tell me once, like, hey, Dr. Keith, so glad you came today. Look, man, look at my shoes. And he had like, I think some Jordan 1s. And I think to myself, like, you're a principal of a school wearing your Jordan. This is exactly what, you know what I mean? That's leadership. Young people then see you and realize you are relatable, you are approachable. One of the reasons why I know this incredible woman on the show today is because in college, this was like my hip hop advisor. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, she was an administrator and I was a student, but I was like, it's true, but that says, because that relationship brought me here, right? And so I was like, yo, she was wearing like hip hop saved my life t-shirts and stuff. And I'm like, what is this? You know? But so we inspire folks when we come into buildings like that, being authentic. Because I think a lot of them feel like they can't be.
Right. One of the things that I talk about in the book is how, again, growing up with hip hop in, late 40s as well, right here. And there was a time period where I felt like there was the pressure to be authentic. There was a pressure,
Yeah.
right? It was so thick and it was like serious, right? And it might have been like in the late 80s, early 90s or whatever. And it was like, you better keep it real.
Right.
The streets are watching,
Right.
those types of things. And it felt like a pressure. But now I look back on it and I laugh because I'm like, it was a permission.
Ooh.
It was permission to be your
Not pressure, but
authentic self.
permission.
Yes, to show up authentically, and an expectation for you to do so, to not discard who you are and to be your full self. And that's such an important act of liberation. I think that all of us need, students and educators.
Yes.
Were you going to say something?
Honey, I done forgot the permission.
The permission.
That's a T-shirt.
Right. Permission, not pressure. And I think that's everything that y'all are saying is just echoing for me, because it's like you show up authentically and you kick the door down so we could walk through, right, and take a hold and publish our dissertations, our first books about poetry, right, and hip hop culture. You made space for that, and just by you doing that, we were like, oh, this is possible.
Yep.
There's a possibility,
Absolutely, yeah.
and I don't have to pick a side for anything. I don't have to be confined or restricted to just because this is the mainstream narrative. This is what they tell me. Oh, people like you are supposed to do this, this, and this. I don't have to perform it that way.
Right. So it expands possibilities. We talk all the time about it being a culture of welcome. Like whatever you can contribute is welcomed. Right.
Yes.
And even in one of the other things that I think, like when you really step back and just reflect on the culture, I mean, it's one of those that the closer you get, like the more you immerse yourself in a hip hop environment, the more inspired by it you feel. The fresher you feel, the louder the music is played, the fresher you feel. The closer you are to the stage, the fresher you feel. And I say all the time, that's how educational spaces should be. The more that time we spend in it, the more brilliant we should feel. And so we really need to, as educators, reflect on what do our environments feel like and how welcoming and inspiring and is it for the students that are coming in there?
You are speaking about conditions, right, for learning and engagement within educational space, the conditions in which people are learning and engaging and teaching. And I'm thinking right now about many years ago, I ran a college prep program for kids in DC high schools. And it was a summer program primarily, and the short story is these kids, it was about 45 of them every summer. They would commute from different parts of Washington, D.C. to this church that I was working out of, believe it or not. And they would come there at 8 o'clock in the morning, every day like clockwork in the summer, right? And these students would say, Mr. Keefe, I hate school, but I like coming to this thing you got going on. And I understand now, but like there was something about the conditions in this educational environment that I had some control over. I could bring all the hip hop and the poetry and be my authentic self, as opposed to like a particular school setting that might be a little bit more rigid. And so that idea about like hip hop as a place where conditions can become inspiring for students to learn, that's a nugget. That's a golden nugget right there.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Come on,
scissors.
No, because, okay. Thank you, Lord. One of the things also that I'm hearing as y'all talk is that one of the core things that hip hop did, and we can tap, I don't want to tap around it, so I'm going to just go. Hip hop was one of the first to say, let's talk about race. Let's talk about the conditions that's creating the things that we're seeing. Hip hop gave us space. And so when you have students that say, I can't do school because I'm confining you, I can't let you be your authentic self, I can't let you know the truth about yourself, I can't have you do that because you won't be this thing that we're trying to tame. Hip hop and having those kind of spoken word spaces, those hip hop spaces, kids are like, no, I understand. And so when you see the activism that came out of hip hop, and that's another way it shaped me, like it's because of like how I've moved in hip hop where I can actually watch a video and be like, no, we supposed to go down there. I'm supposed to be in the community. It's about the community. Hip hop was and so it's doing all those things. Why I'm here, right? Literally why I'm here. And it was like, keeping it real. Don't just talk about it, be about it. Where are your receipts, right? So with somebody, but it's one of the things you said something, I think what came, and I'm gonna be using this, is that hip had a way of calling us forth. Not about when you say that authenticity, it called you forth, and it wouldn't allow you. If you really think about it, it was the only place that really said, you ain't gonna be your lower self.
Yes.
Not in running this.
Yeah.
Other spaces would be like, okay, well, just sit there quiet.
Mediocrity is
okay.
fine.
Mediocrity is fine. Hip hop was like, bring it on.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Yes.
All
I want the
day,
smoke.
every day.
Yes.
All of it. All of
Yes.
it.
Yep.
All
Yes.
of it. And we gonna keep. Oh, they took it from school. We about to go build it over here.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And then all the rebuilding.
That's it.
The rebuilding, the remixing.
That's it.
Yes.
The
Remastering.
remix.
Yes.
And this makes me so y'all know October 11th is the International Day of
The
the Girl,
girl.
right?
How we
And
all
so
connected.
this is somewhere else. I've been able to bring hip hop and spoken word poetry with
the
global
UN.
girls to the United Nations headquarters in New York City
Talk your smack.
in a show that is run. Written and performed and shared by global girls.
Yep.
Yes.
High school, I'm talking age 18 and under. Hip hop did that.
Yeah.
Hip hop
did that.
Yeah.
I've been in spaces, I've been in communities in Hawassa, Ethiopia, in Soweto, South Africa, where girls are facing the types of circumstances here in the United States we can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine. You know what allows them to speak up and show up and have some joy? It's hip hop.
Yes.
It's hip hop, and that creates that space. And so this is now the 10th annual Girls Speak Out program coming up on October the 10th, 2023 at the UN.
Yes.
Come on, girls.
But you know what I'm saying? And y'all have brought girls up,
Yes.
up to the United Nations
From Columbia.
From Columbia, South Carolina.
Yeah.
They came up. I came down, did a work. I mean, it's the whole exchange, right? I came down, did a workshop. They came up and were hearing their words performed at the seat of global power.
Yeah.
In the United Nations, in the big conference chamber where decisions and policy gets made. Black girls in South Carolina's poetry getting called and responded to in an audience full of 500 other girls and live streamed.
Yes.
That's hip hop.
And that's hip hop.
That's hip hop.
And that's hip hop because it says, okay, you recognize the conditions are raggedy.
Yep.
You know they've tried to mute you. They've said, you can only be this. We're going to limit you with this. You don't have these resources. And the power of that is that's what spoken word does. Hip hop says you're making something out of what you got.
Yeah.
And what you got is enough.
Absolutely, absolutely. Emotional safety. You need to cry, you need to scream, you need to yell, laugh, whatever you need to do.
Emotional safety.
Do it.
Good words.
Do it. But I'm so glad you moved into spoken word, because I think that's a realm of hip hop that all of us share a love for, right? We've all engaged spoken word in some way. The two of you are internationally recognized spoken word artists, right? You've been all over the world performing.
Kind of know.
I love that, right?
And then even as educators or arts administrators or curators, right? Cultural curators, we created spoken word spaces at schools and universities across the country. You traveled to schools and universities doing spoken word, whatever. So let's talk first about just what exactly is spoken word and how is that different from rapping?
Well,
You want me to do it? Oh, you got it. Go.
Toby, I think I can show you better than I can tell you.
Okay.
Is that all right?
We're gonna get a little
Let's go. You want to hear it? Here it goes. I never wanted to write poetry. I only wanted to manage my pain. Stuff my hurt into the curves of letters, consonants that beat like fists to make us all feel better. We've been strategically positioned for failure, so they're surprised when we succeed. Be careful not to confuse humility with defeat. Don't make judgments based on what you see. Still water, still run deep, so you best to sit still if you got shaky feet. You best to keep quiet if you're not sure what to speak, but your silence won't protect you and it will not set you free. As for me, I'm one of Chief Thundercloud Che Guevara, Harriet Tubman's daughter, so I feel right at home with my Carolina classroom supporters. And if God be for us, that makes us unstoppable. If it looks impossible, if it sounds illogical, that keeps things exciting. We don't blink at obstacles. We don't shrink at threats. We don't rescind our statements. We don't expect you to understand if your vision ain't there yet. And yes, times do get hard. I still hit my knees, call out to Almighty God. He told me, girl, get up, get dressed, Put your good shoes on because the war is not over. You gotta love all of my people no matter where they are, from that freestyle cipher on the corner to the rising academic superstar. Use your words to remind them who they are, and like soft velvet gloves over brass knuckles, baby, we hit hard. Surprise, we go far across the spectrum of a lyrical refrain. Honey, this is what you get when you mix Cornel West with Lil Wayne. Malcolm X meets Queen Elizabeth's reign. The House of Representatives meets the House of Pain. The Shaolin Temple and the clan of Wu-Tang. I do my thing. I am one half master, one half runaway slave. I am Pecos Bill Paul Bunyan meets Apache Indian brave. I will scalp you just to get to your brain, so if there is a flesh wound and you find yourself in pain, I'm Professor X, or you could just call me the doctor. I am Lena Horne meets Lady Gaga. We go further, we hit harder. I am Carmen Electra mixed with Patricia Hill Collins, the highest of heaven swinging low to the earth. The boy from the mobile home trailer park met a girl buying high fashion. I was the accident that happened. In other words, I was what got birthed. Things got noisy like the Titans was clashing. Bobo Hildred Rasta meets heavy metal thrasher. A beautiful disaster. They work hard, we work faster. I'm your favorite video vixen and your favorite TV preacher. I am both, yet I am neither. I'm Crystal Leigh. It's nice to meet ya. Y'all keep that applause going. We gonna bring up Dr. Toby Jenkins.
Let me tell you, thanks. I think I'm still running on your energy. There we go. Yeah, thank you. You can save someone from drowning. And my daddy's a minister, and he says, son, if your sermon is good, you can save someone's soul. Well, I've never really been the type of person to ask for help, but if I needed some saving today, trust me, you all would know. But I won't be sending out an SOS message or interrupting your regularly scheduled programs. I won't be sending you an email, a text message, or putting anything on Facebook, TikTok, Snapchat, or Instagram, but instead you'll find me on a stage, usually with a piece of paper in my left and a pen in my right hand, my mouth to be wide open and a vein poking out of my neck, my eyes to be shut tight as I focus on every single breath. Just to make sure that my lungs have enough capacity to create words that can defy the laws of gravity and swirl into a vortex of knowledge, causing supernatural catastrophes. And while this poem ain't no tragedy, there might be some casualties if you're not prepared to battle me. But if you're feeling froggy today, then you all can jump. But y'all, my poems are not for tricks, and they certainly aren't for chumps. Look, I do this for a reason. I write this for those of you with terminal diseases. I write this for those of you who probably as a kid wanted Netflix and chill, but your parents were preachers. I write this for those of you who love your mama, but all she does is scream at you. I write this for those of you who love your daddy, although his eyes have never seen you. I write this for those of you who miss getting a good night's sleep after hearing your grandma sing a sweet song to you. I write this for you. I write this for those of you that work so hard to create change, you get frustrated, but Toby, you still maintain. I write this for you. I write this for those of you who don't have answers, yet one is always being forced from you. Y'all, I've learned that sometimes saying I don't know is a lie, but sometimes saying I don't know is the truth. I write this for you. I write this for those of you whose sexuality is unacceptable until it's received society's stamp of approval. And I write this for those of you that want to claim your birthright as a daughter of Oshun. Been battling poetry until my ink bleeds black and blue. I'm just a superhero, y'all, with a cape made of metaphors, trying to use my words to simply save you. And yes, y'all, at some point in time, I may need a little bit of saving, but I've been investing and paying into my bank of poetry account for a little while now, so I can afford a little misbehaving. But I'm not in the game of playing with people's minds. And yes, y'all, some of my words in this poem do rhyme, but I've been doing this for a while, so it just kind of happens sometimes. And yes, memorization will make any of my performances good. But if I had him here, I would pick up all my books to read my messages and make sure that none of my words get misunderstood. Like I told y'all before, I do this for a reason. And this gift, it is not temporary. It does not change with the seasons. That means I can spit fire while the sky is hot, or I can cool it down while the water is freezing. And if words having power isn't something that you all believe in, then I will spit on my fingertips, reach out my palm and turn this studio into an altar call, and I'll start saving all of you heathens. Because you see, I care about your futures. I care about your destinies. I care about your legacies. And I want y'all to know my name. I want y'all to look up in the sky and say this with me. Is that a bird?
Is that a bird?
Yes. Is that a plane?
Is that a plane?
I reach out screaming, no, it is poetry. And I am a poet, a social agent of change, piecing letters to words and words to sentences and sentences to sounds. I can leap over metaphors in one single bound. I am powerful enough to spark protests for equality in ghetto communities. Talk slicker than politicians that create policies that grant rich people immunities. Y'all, I didn't choose to be saved by poetry. Poetry chose me. Dr. E, poetry crept up inside my mama's womb and poetry started tickling me. I've been speaking in these rhythmic patterns since I was in grade 3. I'm gonna continue till I'm through, so who am I? This Dr. Tony Keefe Jr., simple superhero with a cape made of metaphors, trying to use my words to simply save you.
Woo!
That's wrong.
Both of y'all. Both of y'all.
Thank you.
Yes, brother, yes.
Thank you.
All right. So let's come back together.
Act like you got some sense.
I wanted to respond. I wanted to respond to your question about that relationship. I'm assuming that's where you were going to go, yeah?
Yes.
Because when I was in the moment, I realized that the relationship really does exist sort of on that stage. Hip hop, there's this thing called a cipher within hip hop, right?
Yep.
You form a circle, there's an energy that's created, and people inside back in the day, they're breakdancing, whatever. But like what happens with hip hop, there's a spirit that takes place in this little cipher moment where rhythmic words happen. And so the relationship happens at the poetry, right? So when you think about rap music, you take the instrumentals out of that. It's poems structured on the page, right? Some of my favorite hip hop artists are poets. Tupac Shakur, Queen Latifah, Nas, many started off, even Kanye West, Lauryn Hill started off writing poetry. That is that relationship. Spoken word is the performance of that poetry, right? Now, there's also another lens that I put on spoken word too, which is why I wanted to say that, is because I also put it in the context of hip hop being culture created by black folks, enslaved people, right? Not all black people, let me rephrase that. Hip hop being something created from African people, right? When you think about the beat, the drum, the rhythm that already existed before they were enslaved, right? And as a descendant of those people, I inherited that. I know I did. It's all up in me somehow, right? And so for me, I look at it like spoken word is also a literacy practice because my ancestors did not have access to the written word, right? So therefore, we needed the spoken word to communicate, right? To share messages. We're putting this joint in spirituals. We're putting it in songs. We're putting it in poems. But it is a literacy practice about freedom, right? So there's this performance of the poetry, but then there's a thing that happens in this cipher where there's a freedom that takes place. That's a hip hop.
Yes. Why do y'all think? Because I'm looking at it now. I mean, the performances and thinking about kind of what you're sharing with the historical context of it all, right? I'm looking at all of you who I've worked with in so many different ways over the course of decades, right? We've been doing this for decades.
That's true. That's why.
Right along with hip hop, right?
We like that. It's been a minute.
Got that makeup on.
It's still, particularly when we talk about spoken word, it's still something that it's an art form that's still highly engaged, like across all generations, like multiple generations, all levels of education, whether they're college students to elementary school students. You know what I'm saying? You can get all of them.
Everybody can win.
Everybody can engage and are still interested in it, right? They're still interested in it. Why do y'all think it's so enduring?
Well, go ahead, Viv, go.
Because it was off something when you asked. The distinction for me has been there's such an intimacy with the spoken word. Like there's something to stand there and literally share all of you. And there's a way, and you watched it, that they receive and share back. And when we rapping, you can hide in a rap. You cannot hide with spoken word.
That's a bar.
There's literally no it's like, okay. And then there's this hug that happens. There's not this overshouting, like the rapping. And we know it all has rhythmic flow, but there's something different. There's a level of intimacy. Ciphers are like ciphers, we do them, they cool. But there's something about letting that one person, or even if it's more than one, but listening.
That's it.
That listening, and you're listening, because you'll have a person, I ain't trying to be funny, but I'll be like, I just like the beat.
That's honest.
I was like, child, I don't know what they saying, but that beat is, ain't no way I'm gonna leave an open mic and like, I don't know what they said. It's like, let me tell you, did you hear what that child said? And then you're listening like, oh, I didn't even know that was happening. It becomes your own news channel because it's so intimate.
That's it. And everything, it's relationship. It is always about right relationship. And I think about that in terms of power dynamic, you know, from a feminist person, from a black feminist, from feminism of color, from global girl. You think about girls, you always have to think about the power dynamic there. And when we think about justice, and it is investigating what does a right relationship look like. And I think spoken word, it reduces everything down. It's the concentrated clear. There is nowhere to hide. You are in the audience, you are accountable immediately for what happens on that stage. And not just what happens on that stage, what you gonna do about it.
What you gonna do about it,
yeah.
What are you gonna do with this? And you can't say, oh, I didn't catch that, or oh, I didn't understand, or oh, I didn't know. Because it is a physical, it's your body, it's your spirit, and it's your mind, all at one time. And that relationship, I think it's most powerful, and the people who have experienced that, they walk away. My students who, I'm so nervous, I'm not a poet, they perform for the first time in the classroom. They see themselves differently because they see something reflected in that audience that they haven't seen reflected in their own mirror. So it's my relationship with you, it goes back to Fifth Element. My relationship with you through spoken word shifts my relationship with myself. I learn more who I am, and I learn more who you are. And then we learn what this world is and how, are we gonna change it? Are we gonna change it?
That's
you said learning. I couldn't help but to throw in this moment, this idea of like ways of knowing, because I'm even thinking about like just hip hop ways of knowing. Shout out to your mindset.
Yes.
But like, you know, because I always tell people I'm not a rapper. I have rap, but that's just not my jam. And I realized something in terms of ways of knowing. I think about this in terms of spoken word, poetry, and rap. Because with rap, it's poetry spoken over a time beat, and it must rhyme. Right. And usually it's linked in bars. Like there's a very limited, it's sort of like not regulated, there's structure. Spoken word is a little bit more like, I could be as free or as flexible as I can. And I realize that I'm like, I hear words before I hear melodies. So when I'm writing my poetry, I'm writing the poetry sort of as I hear it. I hear the words first. The rhythm just, it shows up. For some people, their way of knowing, they're like, oh, I hear that beat. Give me the pen, give me the pen, let me write the words down. Mine is, I guess, opposite, you know, or whatever. I think there's something to be said about ways of knowing that way. And even teaching young people, and even adults, like, yo, when you bobbing your head and coming up with stuff, that is you exercising your way of knowing. You know what I mean? Or when you're writing you know what I mean? That is
It's the thing, and I think that's something else spoken word does specifically and uniquely as this art form, and that's why it is so long lasting. Once you get a taste of it, there's nobody who has ever performed that, if given an opportunity, would not perform.
That's right.
It shifts everything. And I know for me, this is back to part of what hip hop taught me, but hip hop taught me through performance of the spoken word is that confidence.
Yes, absolutely.
I can be, because guess what? I only have to be up there. I only have to say it's my body, it's my experience, and no one else is co-authoring this joint.
How about that?
It's me.
And that, we're talking like spoken word versus rapping, but also looking at spoken word versus what we do with traditional poetry. Well, there's also there's such a restriction in the writing, and it's like best read. But spoken word is such a lived experience. I can pick up what Crystal just did, and I'll be like, it's got to be read. It's got to be spoken. It's got to be spoken. In the beginning was the word. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, right? So he's been telling us for, like, the word, it's the word that's going to connect. Like you said, no matter where you are, and it doesn't put a restriction on which words you use.
How about that?
So if I want to say yo, or if I want to say you, or if I want to say y'all, but the way, and this way it's received, there's less critique there. There's less critique, so it does, once again, for classroom, allows that freedom, right?
There is so much power, I think, in the metaphorical mic. Right, because microphones.
In these T-shirts.
You know,
I mean, you're just like dropping them, like every metaphorical, but like, what is going on?
But seriously, like a microphone is such a powerful object. Right. And so for the person that is speaking on that microphone, it is telling you that your words matter. Right? And so it's such a life-giving, it's a life-changing, life-transforming. We see, even within hip-hop culture, how the microphone literally transforms people's lives. It has changed their bank accounts and changed, you know, it's like literally, it's literally, but it's a powerful thing to recognize and to know that people around the world are listening. Like you said, that people are hearing what you're saying. And I think as we kind of close out the conversation, I want to pick back up on something that you said, Vivian, about the hug that you receive. The hug you receive from the audience
My goodness.
Right? Because I think that's so important. When y'all finish, like we literally hug.
You gotta do something with that energy. You have to.
But it does. It generates this feeling of goodness, community, right? That you want to embrace the person. You are so thankful for the gift that they've given and shared and how they've bared their souls. But then the audience gives you a hug as well. Even if they're not physically touching you, it's this feeling of being connected in some ways. How are we doing that in classrooms? How are we creating that metaphorical hug in the classroom community where we can all connect and just be and feel free and love each other and love what you can contribute. You don't have to contribute, like you said, one specific constricted, directed thing. But what is it that you have to give? We'll take it.
And celebrate it. And we recognize you. We see you, we hear you, we believe you.
Yes.
Also, I'm so glad now is absolutely, and it's been the time that we use words like love and hug in education. I just want to say that I'm so glad that this is happening because those multiple words like that are usually sort of like, either disregarded, but I'm like, no, I love my students. I hug them, you know what I mean, within the appropriate, you know what I mean? So we need to talk about love as a condition for learning. You know what I mean? Like, how can you create an atmosphere where people and even your own self feels loved? You know, like
yes. Well, I love y'all.
I love you.
Thank you so much, y'all. Thank you for this wonderful conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you all for joining me in this conversation. And we hope that you do what you can, not just in 2023 to celebrate hip hop culture, but continue to engage it, learn about it, embrace it, discover it, pick up a copy of the Hip Hop Mindset and learn more about it in 2023 and beyond.
Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back on TV in November featuring student journalism projects.